Hey guys, welcome to Salty Confessions Podcast. My name is Jay.
My name is Jeremy.
What we're doing here today is we are going to be talking about who we are, introducing ourselves, why we're starting this podcast, what we can expect. We're going to talk about a lot of faith. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about business mindset, and all sorts of topics that a lot of the viewers can relate to. Yeah.
Yeah, and on this podcast, we talk about anything and everything from lifestyle down here on the beach. We'll get into that. We like surfing, spearfishing, all that good stuff, but mainly spiritual growth and what we're learning in our own journeys in life. And then, anything that we can learn from you guys as well. We're trying to build a community where we're all just trying to get closer to God and kind of bounce off ideas and learning experiences.
So who are we? My name's Jay. I am 22 years old. I am from Santa Rosa Beach. I've lived here my whole life. I was born in Oregon. I lived there for about 3 months and moved back down here to this area where my family's from. I was born in the water, been a waterman my whole life. I've been surfing since I was 3 years old. I love spearfishing. I love nature. I love just being out in the ocean. And that's why I started a surf school. So I've been teaching surf lessons for about 9 years. I worked at a surf school, local surf school, when I was 13 years old, and I've taught hundreds and hundreds of kids. And so recently, I just started my own surf school here in Sandestin. I am a new content creator. I started content creation about 5 months ago, and it has taken off. It's done pretty well so far. So that's also leading into my next business. I am starting a journaling company. We actually have a journal right here. So through my content creation, I'm trying to just spread a good message. I'm trying to, spread the good word of the Lord. I'm a newly converted Christian, and my whole purpose and goal is just to help people out that are going through struggles, help people that are going through some similar position as I am, that's my story.
Don't sleep on his journal, guys. It's a really, really good book. It's helped me a lot. One thing that a lot of people fail to remember is, in past societies, men would go to war and then they'd come back and become philosophers or poets because they had seen, both the good and the worst side of a man. And there's something to learn from that. And one great thing about this journal is it really kind of walks you through, your own introspection and how you can give your life over to God and whatnot. But about me and my story, born and raised in Atlanta, graduated with a marketing degree and got into marketing for about 5 years, mainly over in Scottsdale on the West Coast. And quit all that and started my own two businesses. First one is mainly videography and photography. I love telling stories, writing poetry, and all that. So that's with the Crawford portfolio. And then also I have a catering business on the beach. So we do family dinners, date nights, all that good stuff. But the biggest part of my life is basically just giving back to others and creating moments where people feel closer to God, whether it's with my content that I'm making, videos bringing people closer to a message, or triggering the ethos, or even just creating a beautiful sunset dinner for a family just to enjoy God's creation. But yeah, I met Jay on the beach, just to kind of suffice the two businesses, and I was running one of the beach services, and that's how we met. We just kind of bounced off ideas, and then he went through heartbreak. I went through heartbreak at the same time. We'll get into it, and then we just kind of decided to full dive into our spiritual war, and then start this podcast and share it with the world. So hope you guys like it, and your shit.
Yeah, so I started my business this summer. Jeremy was working on the beach at the beach service, and I had just started this business. So he was working the hut, vending chairs out, and my surf school was set up right in front of him. So he and I were on the beach every day over the summer, 5-6 hours. So we would just get talking. He and I went through the same type of situation. I had been in a relationship for quite a while, and that relationship ended. And so I was feeling it, and then a couple months later, he went through the exact same thing. So that's kind of what gave us the drive and the motivation to start this podcast. We're both going through pretty hard situations. We were experiencing, probably the worst heartbreaks we've ever experienced, and we're using that moment to try to become better. We're using that moment to become closer to God, And so that's why we started this. We want to talk about those experiences that maybe you could relate to. We're going to talk about God. We're going to talk about business, mindset. We're going to share, our stories, funny stories, action, talk about nature, traveling, whatnot. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of different topics. And we are excited to have you on this journey. And we're excited to be able to talk about these things and maybe help you out.
All right, so our first topic, it's an introductory episode, so we'll get into what matters most, math, and that's gonna be faith. Most people are, take it for granted, obviously, but I was blessed enough to be raised Catholic, but I did take it for granted. Though I was given that baseline to always be able to come back to, I never really fully took it for granted. And shameful enough, it took me 30 years to crack open a Bible and actually read the Word and practice it, which was crazy. But I started off split household, so I kind of didn't understand the concept of love, and abandonment issues were rooted at an early age. Suicidal ideation since I was about 7. When I was 21 years old, I chose to go to rehab. I didn't want to be like my dad, quit drinking and everything. You would think that would lead to better times, but God tested me early on, and I went through multiple heartbreaks, arrests, homelessness, you name it. And I quickly learned that my will was not the way, and that the more that I tried, we'll get into it later, but it's only going to nudge the hand of the painter that's painting your life story. And putting your will before God's will only lead to destruction. And so it kind of led to a point where I was in a deep pit, especially with this last breakup. Was just kind of a big moment that just shed light to how much I had neglected my own path and what God was putting forth for me. And this podcast, I believe, is going to be a blessing, just being able to share our stories and how God has worked through us. And especially, you'll see it just with how we live our lives in God's creation, whether it's surfing, free diving, just being out in nature in His creation. It truly can help the soul just kind of stretch and not feel so confined as it does within walls and an office and whatnot. So, yep.
My walk with faith started about 5 months ago. I decided to give my life to Christ. I went through one of the hardest breakups and heartbreaks that I've ever experienced in my life. I was with a woman who I thought I was going to marry. She kind of gave me the nudge to faith because she had been raised Catholic. So when we broke up, I realized that I needed faith more than ever. I was sent down this deep pit of despair. And at that moment, I decided I needed to accept something greater than myself. So my story, I was raised atheist my whole life. My father was from Sao Paulo, Brazil. He moved to America when he was about 18 years old. He started from the very bottom. He was sleeping on people's couches, looking for work. He was a immigrant from, Brazil, and he was struggling to find his way. He met my mother when he was about 30 years old. He built a foundation for himself. He got jobs, and he's kind of completely turned his life around from being poor to making an honest living. I was born in Oregon. My parents met, and it was very short. Let's just say I was an accident. I was an accident, and my dad needed his green card, so they got married, and then shortly after, they split up when I was 3 months old. So I've really experienced what it's like to be in a split household with troubles on both sides of the family. Raised with, abuse, domestic violence, household turbulence, emotional turbulence. There's a lot of people out there that go through the exact same thing. But I was raised atheist my whole life. I didn't have anything to put all those struggles on. I didn't have a way to be like, Lord, take this away from me. Ground me, give me peace. So I started having anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts when I was about 10 years old, and it's been something I battled with for so long. And when you don't have an anchor and something to lean on, life gets so much harder. So when I got broken up with, I said to myself, all right, I can't I used to despise religion. I used to despise God. I was rebellious. And so whenever I got broken up with, I was on my knees and I said, all right, I need to get real with myself. I can't do this by myself anymore. So I gave everything, all my struggles to Christ. I still go through struggles. I still have thoughts. I still have to, every day is a battle. Not everyone is perfect. But when you give all your struggles to Christ and you dive into this book that is 2,000 years old with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of just knowledge and wisdom, there's an answer for every question that you have. And you're a fool to not even look at that. So I decided, all right, I'm going to get real on faith. I'm going to pray every day. I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to give all my struggles to Christ, because the Son of God came to earth to take away all of our pain, suffering, sin. And why not? Why would I not do that? Why would I not give away my suffering to someone who, one of the most graceful people to walk the face of this earth? And so that's my journey. It's been 5 months. I've given my life to Christ. I've noticed a complete 360 shift. I still have struggles. I'm not perfect. Not everyone's perfect. You still got to deal with, controlling your anger, controlling your emotions, controlling temptation. But it's made it so much easier. And yeah, I'm blessed.
So next part that we're going to do is basically every single episode we're going to share a life lesson that we learned during this week and kind of a story that went along with it. So I'm going to ask Jay first, what is a life lesson that you've learned this week and how are you going to take it into next?
So the biggest life lesson I've ever learned, in the last week, just to kind of add off what you've been going through or what you were just saying, is just trusting in God's plan. So I went through a dilemma, a pretty serious dilemma this last week with someone that I used to know. And the night before the event happened, I was praying for reconciliation. I was praying for forgiveness and clarity from, someone that I used to know. And the next morning I woke up and I got a very, very shocking answer. It scared the crap out of me, honestly. I thought I was going to be ruined. And so it was a wake-up call, because when you try to cling to something that God has already removed from your life, you try to cling to objects, people, places that have already been removed from your life. The more you cling to that, the more you're missing out on what's ahead of you. When you look at the past, you're ignoring the present and you're screwing up your future. So it was a big wake-up call, and the biggest lesson was just letting go and trusting in his plan, trusting in God's plan, not clinging to what he's already taken away. Because like we were talking about earlier, God is the painter, and he is painting your path, and you're just walking behind that paintbrush. He is making everything. And the more you try to hold on, the more you're messing up his painting. You're kicking his paintbrush. So the biggest lesson was just letting go and accepting it, accepting each situation, moment, whatever happens, and just being able to find full acceptance in the moment. Whatever happens to you happens, and it's in your best interest, because it is part of God's plan. Say, I were to get thrown in jail, I were to lose an arm, I were to lose my limbs, family members, loss of objects, people, places and moments in your life. Whenever those are taken out of your life, he's doing it for a reason. And so it was a big reminder for me to trust that everything's going to work out, and that everything that happens in your life is a lesson. And you can choose to learn from that lesson and grow, and that's part of God's will, or you can stay stuck and play the victim, and you'll never grow. You'll stay stagnant. You'll stay in the exact same position. You always have to be moving in order for God to guide you. You can't drive a car without putting the gas. God will steer, but if you're not putting the gas, then you're not going to go anywhere. So that was a big lesson I've learned.
Absolutely, man. The Bible even says before everything there was water, and our bodies are mostly made of water. If water remains still, it becomes a stagnant pond, and algae and disease and parasites and everything will brew in that area. But if water is constantly moving like white water, it's crisp, it's cold, it's refreshing. So always move with intention and always move with God's will, first of all, in mind. Um, but I would say that my biggest life lesson, genuinely, like, same thing, bit of a different twist, but same thing, just letting go. I think that's honestly going to be the biggest lesson that I learned throughout my life. And for most of us throughout our lives is literally just letting go. The biggest reason for me why it's the biggest lesson is because at the end of all this, we got to let go of everything. Everything will leave our bodies, and we won't be able to hold on to anything in life. So I've been told before that, life is nothing more than a series of spiritual naps where you're just constantly reawakening to, like, man, I didn't need all this. You know what I mean? Like, um, another analogy is, when you're born, it's like God just threw you out of an airplane, and, you're going to hit the ground. So as you're falling, you're trying to grab all these things, but you're still going to have an impact zone and you're still going to lose all of it. So the best part is just to be a witness of things that come in and leave your life, but to hold on to nothing and to really practice the law of detachment. For me, you know, one biggest thing I've learned is the harder I try to hold on to things, the harder I practice my will, and the harder God's gonna rip it away from me and kind of shoo me over to where He needs me to be. So definitely letting go, and definitely recognizing that everything in this life is rented. Um, nothing, nothing in life is yours. Everything here is a layover to heaven. Nothing here is your final destination. Period. So, biggest thing is just practicing gratitude, and for me, gratitude is recognizing that nothing is mine and that everything is rented, and just to be grateful for it while it lasts and while it's here. And in that, things can flow in and out of you, and you can experience life in a more grateful way that isn't, you know, um, greedy ways of thinking or lustful ways of thinking that we've all fell victim to in the past. So,
Yeah, to add to what you said before, basically releasing all your attachment to worldly desires. You can't bring the money, you can't bring the car, you can't bring people into your grave, and in the end, all that's gonna go. So the only thing you've got is the present moment, and you have to be grateful for everything you have. Worldly desires, they're nothing compared to the kingdom of heaven that you will experience when you inevitably reach your grave. Um, Greatest lesson I learned this week. Just positive thinking, making sure that you're not doubting yourself. You're not letting enemy thoughts get in your head and tell you that you're not doing enough, that you're not enough, that everything's gonna fail. You have to have faith. You got to change your thinking because what you are thinking in your mind is going to completely change your reality. So what you think in your head is going to happen in your real world experience. So if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, then you're going to constantly have negative experiences. So for me, it's like, all right, content creation. I've built a following, and I've built a following really fast. And so those numbers are starting to get into my head. All right, I get a post that has a million views, and then I post something else and it just doesn't do well. And then I post something else and it doesn't do well. And it starts to get in my head. It's like, all right, why is this not working out? Like, why aren't these posts doing well? And why are my views going down? And what am I doing wrong? Like, I don't know if this is meant for me. Like, all those thoughts get in your head trying to deter you from from the ultimate goal, um, from the end goal and the purpose. So, I mean, God blessed me with starting content creation. He blessed me with a following. He even blessed me with the ideas that turned into viral posts. And so when I start to doubt that plan, inevitably I'm working against God. So you have to shift your thinking. You have to think positive. You have to ask and believe that you will receive. You have to have faith. Just as The woman was healed by Jesus Christ just by the touching of his garment or touching of his tassel. You have to have that faith in whatever you do. You have to have faith that he is going to heal you. You have to have faith that he's going to bless you with whatever it is you desire. You just have to believe, and you have to think that you already have it. Know that you already have it. So that was a big thing that I learned. What was the biggest lesson that you learned the hard way? Sometimes you have to learn lessons by failing and inevitably getting knocked down, and you have to learn the hard way. So what was one that you had to experience?
Uh, Biggest lesson that I learned, especially as a man, would be that no one's gonna save you. Period. Um,
I learned that one too. Yeah,
yeah,
I learned that one too.
yeah, definitely that no one's gonna save you, and most of all that self pity serves no purpose in any success story. Period. Um, it's I truly believe pity really doesn't have a purpose in your life at all. Reason being is what's happening to you has a purpose, and typically behind it is what you've been asking God for this whole time. Nothing is going to come free. There's a reason why people used to like sacrifice things back then, because they understood, it took something to get something from the divine. So therefore, the adversity that you're going through is what you're putting on the altar to learn from God, to access a higher bit of knowledge. So constantly staying close to that lifeline, which is God, which is His Word, is definitely um, what will keep you saving yourself. You want to know how to save yourself? Read the book. You know what the book is. It's that simple. I've been told that for 30 years, and it took like almost 30 years just to literally crack it open. And it's this simple. It literally says, don't divert from the word, read it and practice it literally. And faith is dead without action. Do those accordingly and watch your life change. So that's kind of what I've learned recently. Is no one will save you, and there's a manual for it that everyone has access to that's totally free, and it's from several viable sources over centuries all over the world that had the same account. You can't beat it. So
What's crazy is it literally is that book, the Bible, is one of the most credible sources to ever be written. It was written by hundreds of authors that over centuries, and it has been basically it's impossible to change it. You can't really. All these different books have been pulled out of caves, and you have live witness accounts of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, coming to earth, and the 12 disciples recording everything. And it's astonishing to me is people will look at that and be like, "Oh, it's changed. It's not valid. It's been it's all blasphemy. It's not real." And it's crazy. It's literally you have more reliable source of Jesus Christ than you have of Marcus Aurelius, Socrates, Plato, all these other famous Stoic philosophers, but people refuse to take the resources that have been given to them from the Bible as credible, and that's astonishing to me. That book has literally any answer to any question that you have. You go on your phone, you chat GBT. All right, give me a Bible verse for heartbreak. The Lord is close with those brokenhearted and crushed in spirit. Give me a Bible verse for hypocrites. Take the log out of your own eye before judging or taking the splinter out of mine. And like I said before, you are a fool to not even give the Bible, not even give the story of Christ, even a chance, because it probably is one of the most reliable sources of text. And yeah, that it's astonishing to me.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's got an answer for everything, and I think it's part of what's helped me, to be fully honest with you, like be comfortable in starting a podcast and talking about Jesus, especially. I don't have to say it, everyone feels it. There's just something different going on, like in the world. You look around, and it's not the same. There's something that's governing society that is very dark, and you see it in in our generation in dating. It's crazy. It's all fear based. There's so much unsolved trauma. People are trying to take life into their hands, practice their will, like we've talked about, and we're slowly learning. A lot of history has been rewritten a certain manner, to solve certain political ideologies or whatnot. But the one thing that has stayed consistent is the Bible, and that is all that we can run off of before we debate these huge political things or like look at conspiracies or try to figure things out. The Bible tells us the more that we look into those things, the closer we're going to get to the devil. Just stick to the word, because his plan's going to unravel, and the best you can do is just preserve the beautiful soul that he gave you through his word, and to stick to it, and to rely on a community and people that understand it as well. It's very daunting, and now more than ever you will be attacked for being close to Jesus. I mean, this
Yeah.
I can say it for you, but like, we this dude found God, turned his life over to him. Jay's a quiet dude, like in the sense of, he loves his surfing. He's a very cordial, classy guy, and then all of a sudden he's spilling out like the word and stuff like this, and then all of a sudden, the internet's supporting him as well. He's helping people's lives. The Holy Spirit is just working through him every day. I witness it, and yeah, and in the midst of all of this, momentum that he's gaining, he gets completely attacked, and I'll say it, by an audience that is trying to silence him. And people always be trying to silence the truth. If you want validation, look at Charlie. If you want further, more true validation, look at Jesus. The truth came here with legs, walked this earth, and we murdered it on fair trial. So if you want to find the truth in this world, you won't. Lucifer landed somewhere and he governs this world, but the spiritual realm will always be God's, and you need to practice his word, and it can change the world and the fabric around you if you do so willingly.
Yeah, look at Charlie Kirk. He was a godly man, a family man. Sure, he said some things that were not loved by some people. He said some pretty what's the word? Yes, he said some triggering and controversial things that not a lot of people liked. But in the end, he was spreading a good message. He was spreading the word of the Lord, and he got murdered for it. We live in a world nowadays where you can't even share your opinion. You can't even share your thoughts. You can't even be a Christian without experiencing some sort of attack. And that's basically the enemy. That's the enemy. As soon as you turn your life to the Lord, you're not going to not experience suffering. You're going to experience suffering, and people are going to come for you for it. People are going to attack you. I've experienced it firsthand. I've had some of the nastiest comments. I've had people in my life try to bring me down. I've had people try to ruin me already, and that's what happens when you turn your life to God. When you start spreading the gospel, you're going to have people. The enemy is coming for you, and so that's just something you have to be prepared for. And Charlie Kirk's situation was really unfortunate because he was a God-fearing Christian. He was a good family man, and people hated that, and it got him his life taken away, and now he's in heaven, and he's experiencing the kingdom of heaven. But when you start preaching, preaching the word, and you start really standing up for something higher than yourself, you're gonna experience hate, and you're gonna get a lot of people coming after you.
Definitely, and the whole Charlie situation, it sheds light to the fact that World War III has already begun in my book, and it's a spiritual one. It has nothing to do with anything with ammunition or explosions, um, but it does have to do with a lot of spiritual casualties. And now is more of a time than better of a time than ever to use our word unapologetically, but in a peaceful manner that is potent, that will pierce kind of the hatred that our world feels. And the best way is simply just to read the word and to act. Those will be the largest contributors, especially to act peacefully. But yeah, I mean, our biggest thing in this podcast, especially for men watching, we have to lead households, and this is a spiritual war that we're in the world. Um, and it's up to us to give our will over to God so that we know what we need to do in this combat. And um, biggest thing is just simply to speak up when something is wrong, and most of all, just yes, and to rebuke most of all those inner thoughts that are bad. I mean, someone told me the other day, like, dude, just stop fooling around with the concept of, oh, like that's temptation. He's like, no, bro, that's the devil. Period. Those little thoughts you hear of like, oh, well, no, it's evil, and
Yeah.
rebuke it. Speak to it. If you want to speak to it, say, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit runs this temple, nothing else. Period. And that is a spiritual war that us men are responsible for. I've failed multiple times. I'm sure you have as well, but no more. And the closer that whatever it is coming to this world gets, we need to be in preparation for it. So
That's powerful. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are really excited to kick off this podcast. Really excited to talk about some of the things that we've been needing to get off of our chests, a lot of world issues that are occurring. And so our next episode is going to be geared towards relationships. We're going to talk about, like what he was saying, the attack on humankind nowadays through relationships, and how relationships are failing and struggling due to modern dating practices. So yeah, stay tuned. We've got a lot of great topics coming up. We've got something really exciting coming, and we are so happy to be here. We're so stoked to be able to get this rolling, and we're glad that you can join us. Thank you.
good stuff, sir.
Good stuff. Good stuff.